Today, 4K and HD is the norm with all motion pictures. And with this amazing step in picture, another thing has also become the norm: better sound design. Perhaps it's because more and more people are investing in better equipment, but the consumer demands a better experience. But who else demands this better experience? Distributors. Did you know that a distributor will make up their mind within the first 10 minutes of watching your movie? If the production level isn't up to their standards, they simply pop the movie out and move on to the next. Now you, as the filmmaker, may have crafted a great script, gotten excellent performances from your actors, and even achieved beautiful cinematography. But if the Foley and sound design is not broadcast quality, they pass. Now how do you get them to watch past the dreaded 10 minutes? I've delivered over 36 movies to studios like Paramount, Lionsgate, E1, The Weinstein Company, and also to many overseas distributors. In my class, I show you how to create a pristine sound design through the magic of Foley. And without Foley, a movie will feel flat, dull, unengaging. But once all those sounds are created, the movie's world comes alive, and the viewer can now be immersed into your story. They can now engage. It's been said by many in Hollywood that sound can make or break a movie. If you have even the slightest doubt that your movie doesn't have great sound design, then you need to take my class. In this course, you will get the basic essentials of the world of Foley. You will have an understanding of what is needed to create a pristine sound design for your movie. I will teach you the secrets that I do to be fast and efficient. You will also know the secrets to increase your audience's engagement. The Master Course covers a complete knowledge of Foley and sound design and a much more hands-on approach. The Master Foley course will be available on Udemy very soon. But it is essential that you take notes while you are taking this course. Write things down. If you don't quite understand a section, stop the lecture and just go over it again. It's 15 years of experience of experimenting is quite a lot to digest all in one course. But it's all these things combined that you will begin to see the shifts to a successful sound design. Watch each lecture all the way through, or you will miss the keys given. Thank you again for taking this course. One of the secrets to understand about good Foley is that the audience ignores it. It's not that it's at a very low volume or buried in the soundtrack somewhere, but it's just enough volume that it is present. And if you focus on one particular Foley, you should be able to identify it. It's done so well that the viewer is now immersed into the story and really pays no attention to it. But without it, they pay attention to something far worse. What's wrong with this movie? Now, they can't seem to put their finger on it. I like to refer it to like the bass guitar of a song. We feel the bass, we hear the bass, but we listen to the singer. We as humans go about our day with millions of noises all around us. Now picture this in your mind for 1 second. You're walking through a city street. There are so many sounds going on all at once that our mind just writes them off as white noise. Do we notice the subtle squeak from the truck's brakes? Not really, we ignore it. Again, if you focus on it, you will hear it. But if you ignore it, it just fades away into the busyness of the city. But it is there. It's only 50 feet away, making that sound. But over the years, we've been conditioned to block it out. Here's the thing. You want to be a successful Foley artist, but your mind has been conditioned to tune sounds out for many, many years. I like to think we humans have noise filters. They help our mind to focus. They help our mind to comprehend. They allow us to process information. It would be a difficult life if we didn't have these noise filters. If we didn't have these noise filters, it would be like being an autistic person and being petrified of a vacuum cleaner. It would be too much stimuli for us to process all at once. So we tune sounds out. Now a Foley artist must now learn how to not only turn those filters off, but to focus on any particular noise at any given time. It goes against our very nature to turn those filters off. And see, that's just it. You need to practice to turning those filters off and allow yourself to hear everything. It's only when you allow this to happen that you will now hear the numerous things that create the basic list of sounds that go into movies. So if you don't put all those necessary sounds into your movie, it will sound dead, artificial. What happens when the viewer watches a movie that doesn't have all those Foley sounds? It bothers them. The viewer may not be able to understand why it bothers them. It just does. In fact, they really don't care to figure out why it's bothering them. They simply just don't engage in the movie. So now that we've been conditioned to block out all of these sounds in our life, it can be a challenge to reconstruct it all back together in an empty space called a timeline. You may have made a movie, but did you include all the sounds of its world? I once said to my wife, I think I could continue to Foley a movie forever and never stop. There are so many overlooked sounds that could be mixed in. But does it make it any better if I continue to infinity? That is where you have to come to a point and say, that is just the right amount. It takes some practice to know when you are at the right amount, but it is just enough to make that movie come alive and breathe. Just listen to any big budget movie with some professional headphones, and you will hear the current professionals, what they're doing in terms of mixing what volume at what. What do they include? They Foley just what is needed to make it sound alive and breathing. That is what you need to shoot for. I once had to fix the sound design for a particular movie for the Weinstein Company. The producers lost the deal over bad sound. Now, this movie had 4 major stars in it. They asked me to create a sound design for the movie. So I reconstructed a fresh sound design, and the deal was resurrected. So you can see how important sound design is. In this case, it was a deal breaker. Like in many cases, it can prevent a distribution deal altogether. The thing to understand about distributors is, when they review a movie, they only watch the first 10 minutes to see if it passes their production standards. If it doesn't pass, they move on to the next movie. Now, your brilliant story is not in their minds, nor do they even get to it. Yes, there is that odd time that they will overlook production quality because of something in the movie that interests them in that first 10 minutes. But again, that is rare. What they're looking for in that 10 minutes is to see if you have shown some professional traits. I have a friend that's a literary agent in Hollywood. He does this very same thing. He instructs his employees to look for a list of professional attributes first before taking into consideration if it has a great story or not. It's the same thing with a distributor looking at your movie. If it passes their standards of good production, they will watch more than 10 minutes. Once my distributor friends explained this crazy way of going about it, it made sense to me. It's not that they're arrogant people or care less. It's because they have to sell this movie to a theater chain or Walmart or Netflix. And you see, Netflix is the same way. If the movie has poor production standards, it's a hard sell. There is a lot more convincing to be done, and Netflix is not in the business to being convinced. They want movies that have worked for them in the past. So I can't stress this enough. Proper Foley is often overlooked. Think about this another way. Let's say you have a great movie, but you don't have a star in it or a huge marketing budget behind it. Having a great sound design will get them to watch more of your movie. If the sound sucks, they pop your movie out and move on. It's really that simple. Now, music is subjective, but Foley is not. I see this all the time. A filmmaker has spent a lot of time editing a movie, but the sound design is weak. They think the music will carry it, the great story will carry it, etc. There's an old adage in Hollywood, don't edit your own movie. Have a professional do it. The reason why they say it is because the filmmaker can be too close to his work and has trouble seeing what works best. It's his baby. Everything in the movie is his baby. Therefore, it's hard for the filmmaker to cut out the fat. Here is the big difference with Foley. When the filmmaker watches his own movie, he is watching the actors, the pacing, the edit, the cut, etc. He's mesmerized by watching it. His subconscious mind fills in the Foley. It may not be there, but his mind fills it in. I know that sounds like an assumption, but the filmmaker thinks it's there. I've seen this before. It's the weirdest thing. But there is a reason for it. It's the filmmaker's world. They are the master of this world. They know every little detail about this world. They assume the viewer hears what they hear even if it's not there. It's like they fill in the blanks and assume the viewer will do the same. But the viewer doesn't hear the Foley. They don't know every single detail of the world. They are experiencing it for the first time. It's not their world. If it's not there, it's not there. So once you understand that you, the filmmaker, is at a disadvantage, you can overcome this and see and hear the movie from an outside perspective. Here's a trick to help train the ear. When you review your movie, turn off the dialogue tracks. Force your ear to hear that world. Once your mind starts to drift and starts paying attention to the story or the great shot, stop yourself. Refocus on the sounds of the world. It can be very difficult because there are triggers every minute that break your concentration. But turning the actor's dialogue off can really help. A trick that lighting guys use when they're looking at how the light is falling on the set is they switch the monitor to black and white. It's like once the color's out of the picture, they can somehow focus on where the shadows are falling. Now, just because they took the color out, they were able to train their eyes to see the light. It's kind of the same trick with Foley. Force yourself to only pay attention to the sounds in the scene. There are 4 things to understand about M&E. There's atmosphere, music, sound effects, and cues. Now, atmosphere is the sounds of the wind, distant birds, cars, etc. Atmosphere can also be the sound in the interior sequences. These are not the sounds created by the character. They're sounds of that world. Whether it be a kitchen, a castle, or a battlefield, the job of the Foley artist is to make the world come alive. Become more than just a world, an enhanced world. If you stand in a castle and close your eyes and just listen, in time you may hear a drafty wind perhaps in the back left. Is that drafty wind passing through a long or short hall? Wait a second, is that dripping? Yeah, in the very distance, I hear water dripping. Do I hear concrete? Probably not. But see, that's where the Foley artist comes in. It's his job to create concrete sounds that don't exist. What does the concrete in a castle sound like? There are many things that make up the concrete noises in an old castle. Sure, on some big-budget productions, there are Foley guys capturing the sound on the locations. But are they able to capture what happens with concrete in an old castle? Yes, to some extent. But let's be honest. This castle is really quiet, and let's break down concrete. There is shifting of stone. There is cracking of stone. What about a distant pebble falling and hitting on the floor? Now, these sounds might not be at the location, or could take weeks to actually happen. So let's say you stand there in the castle and record the sounds and drop them into the movie later. What happens? Yeah, you got an atmosphere in your movie, but it's not ominous. It doesn't have any tension. It's not creepy. It's kind of dead, actually. But see, that's where the Foley artist comes in. Is the movie a fairy tale or is it scary? What tone does the script have? Example. 2 young kids are inching step by step through a mine shaft tunnel. In their hands is flashlights illuminating the darkness in front of them. Do you hear the earth that surrounds them? Do you hear the old wood supporting the earth above them? Do you hear a distant howl of the wind passing the corner in the next tunnel? The problem is that this was shot on a set. There is absolutely no sound on this set. So does the Foley artist record this quiet set and drop it into the movie track and call it a day? No. He has to create those sounds. Now that the artist has done, he has created a mood, because that is what the script called for. Now we are assisting the actor. The viewer is now a little more nervous for the character. It is the job of the Foley artist to make the world something bigger. In this case, more menacing, more suspense, etc. All of a sudden your actors are better, and they didn't do anything different. It's because you took the time to create a world through atmosphere. You just made the movie better. Atmosphere is in the background, but loud enough that we can feel the world. It's loud enough to produce emotions, but it is tucked away in the soundtrack just enough to provoke those feelings. Almost to the point where the mind plays tricks on you and you sort of get convinced that this place has a smell of its own. Professional artists know how to choose their tools wisely. That's atmosphere. The second thing is sound effects. These are the sounds with a little more focus. It may be things that the character is doing, things that bring focus to a specific thing that is happening in the movie. They are sounds that you want the audience to take notice of. Here's an example. Our two young kids embark on an old bridge in the mine. Billy approaches the first step to test the safety of this old bridge. We want the audience to feel that Billy is in danger by crossing this old bridge. Did the live track of this young actor create this sound? No. Because the board was bought at Home Depot, it's brand new wood. It really didn't make any sound. Again, the sound from the set is not going to work. It is the job of the Foley artist to determine how dangerous these planks are. So we insert an old wood cracking, sound mixed with sand, grit, and boot. Now the audience feels how dangerous the plank is. We created a mood. We helped the actor's performance. Sound effects are more focused. They will be above the volume of the atmosphere. The third thing is cues. These are not the score of the movie, but cues that are not naturally occurring in sound. It could be a beat in the background. It could be a cello. It could be a drone. These are things that assist and build more emotions. They could be risers. They could be a crescendo. It is a sound that is added to point the viewer to a particular thing. They are not naturally occurring sounds, but created sounds. They are usually short in duration. I have actually repaired scenes with cues. Sometimes the actor passes by something of importance and the viewer misses it altogether. But by putting that cue in, you're directing the audience to something of importance. Makes points in the movies better. M&E is everything but dialogue. M&E is the final mix of the music, the effects, the Foley. It must stand the test of having no dead spots. The test you need to do before you deliver your movie is to lower all the dialogue tracks to a volume of 0. Play the movie and listen. Are all the Foley sounds there? Can you hear the footsteps? Can you hear the wind? Can you hear the fabric rustling on the characters? That's what is needed to make audiences feel your world that you've created. Make it bigger than real life and make them feel it. This is the part that really helps. You see, when you can get creative, you're conjuring up something from nothing. It's actually what I do to keep myself from getting bored. You challenge yourself. I've got a scene here to Foley, and I ask myself, what can I do to get that exact sound and nail it? Or even better, make it bigger than what it sounds like in real life. Here's a clip of a man lighting up a cigarette. I have no sound, just a picture. I want to make it bigger than real life, right? In real life, you will not hear the tobacco burning. I want to hear those pieces of tobacco burning. So I took a hot pan and placed it into water. I placed the microphone close and got my audio file. What I needed was tiny cinders burning. Then I recorded myself inhale and exhale. In the master course, I'll break this down in much more detail, but for now, let's just play back the clip that I just finished. The trick is to make something that we don't hear in real life and bring it to the big screen. It's such a great marriage of art when you can take photography, writing, performance, and sound and put them together into one moving medium. It can be fun. It also becomes fun when you can jump around very quickly and grab stuff like a painter would. A painter looks at his canvas, he grabs a color, he mixes it with another color, and applies it to the canvas. He then grabs another color and creates another layer until it comes alive. Now, once you get fast and you look at it creatively, it actually becomes enjoyable to Foley your movie. It's like anything. It just takes practice. I learn a lot from just listening to movies. I'll hear something and go, well, that worked really well. I'm going to do that. Today, more than ever, sound in movies has really improved. Perhaps it's because people are getting better sound equipment for their television experience in their home. I'm actually hearing better audio on YouTube these days as well. Big companies are spending more money on productions for their online commercials. When I was younger, we just listened to the speakers from the TV. It was kind of like one-dimensional, almost mono. But the younger generation is watching movies with better equipment. They want an experience. Have you listened to your movie with a pair of expensive headphones? You'd be surprised at what needs your attention. That is why now more than ever you need to have great audio. It makes your movie a whole lot better. It's interesting when you start Foleying your movie. You begin to hear more things in the real world. It's like you can hear things that you couldn't hear before. Stacking multiple tracks to create one sound. So let's take a look at this clip of a woman opening a door. That is the actual sound the real door made. Sure, it's real, but the sound is not cinema big. In the masterclass, I will get into much more detail of what I did to make this Foley cinema ready. But for now, I wanted you to understand what stacking is. So what do I mean by stacking? It's putting a couple of sounds all together at one spot. In order to make something sound real, you first need to understand that there are a lot of complexities going on here with this door opening. There is the type of door, the handle on the door, the linkage, the hinge. What about the stuff that's not even in the picture? What sound will the woman's shoe make? What does the neighborhood sound like? So after the Foley artist has determined all of the individual elements going on in this 6-second clip, it's now time to decide on what is important. What does the viewer need to experience to make this scene better? There are many ways you can go with this clip. It can be mysterious, or it can just be a door. Check with the script. What does the script call for? Now that you've broken down the list of sounds needed and you know the mood, it's time to put it into the movie. I went for a mysterious mood for this illustration, which means I have to make a choice of what is important that the movie viewer experiences. There we go, that's better. I wanted them to think that the person that lives here is a bit eccentric. I also wanted them to think that this place that they're about to enter is grand. Now the sound is a fuller experience. When stacking sounds together, a strange problem can happen. You can put all these great sounds together and then have trouble hearing them. The problem with stacking a lot of sounds together is that they fight for the same speaker. So let's say you have several tracks all on the exact same point in time. They can mud each other out. They can cancel each other and you have trouble hearing the effect. It's kind of like this example with color. Let's say you want to make the color orange. You take red, you take yellow, and now you have orange. But what if it's not the exact orange that you're looking for and you add a little bit of green? That's still not the right color of orange you're looking for, and you grab a little bit of blue. All of a sudden, all the colors are looking brown. This happens when you stack a lot of colors on top of one another. It gets muddy. So now the eye sees brown. So getting back to this can't hear the door issue, all of the sounds can work nicely together, but sometimes they get lost because there's too many sounds all being played at once. Professional audio engineers call this phenomenon out of phase. It's laws of physics. It's like the mix has made all the sounds vanish. Sometimes this happens when you stack sounds. They kind of cancel each other out and you miss the important sounds that you want the viewer to experience. It's about choosing your battles. When Foleying sounds that happen all at once, you need to decide on what is important for the story. So sometimes you need to subtract certain sounds to get it to sound right. The other way to fix this stacking out of phase problem is to move one sound forward or another one back so that they're not at the same instance. But if you really think about it, that's how it really happens in real life. It's a sequential order of several sounds that create a single sound. They happen so fast that we perceive them as a single sound, but they are actually not. Thankfully, with filmmaking, we have 24 frames on our timeline. We can have individual sounds happen in micro moments in time. This helps the ear to hear them individually. Stacking sounds can enrich the overall sound, they can give them dimension, and they can give them richness. You just have to know the limits. It's good to keep your momentum going as best you can. It takes time to break out the microphone and gear and begin recording a particular Foley. But sometimes it's just easier to go visit a few websites in hopes to grab an audio clip that I can just drop into the timeline. It seems faster, right? But is it? Now, what I have found is that you need to become an expert in keyword searches. Or should I say, an expert in what keywords people think of. You see, these sites all have hundreds of thousands of sounds, and it all becomes a bit confusing when you have to sift through it all. I get frustrated when I see poor keyword choices that other guys have chosen for a particular clip. The way it works on these sites, the person that's uploading the file is left to put in the keywords. The actual audio file has no keywords. It's just an audio clip. The guy uploading the file types in whatever he thinks the sound sounds like. What you get then is this confusing result. And I mean this with the deepest regards, but when people often put in the wrong keywords, you get stuff that isn't even close to what you're looking for. An example would be you could type in the search bar, parking a car. What you get is car alarms, door slams, opening garage doors, parking lot, stuff like this. And I just wanted the sound of a car coming to a stop, parking, and then turning off the motor. But instead I get a bunch of stuff that isn't even close. It can be very frustrating and time-consuming. So you end up sifting through all the clips in hopes to find one that will work. Then you put into the search bar, slow stop car. Now you have a bunch of different stuff to sift through. Now you try typing in car approaching. Hopefully I can find a couple that will work. My point is that you have to practice on how to search with keywords. You do it all the time with Google, but Google is more accurate because Google searches for actual terms from websites. At these audio clip websites, it's up to the person that's uploading the file to put in the description or the keywords, and they often put in the wrong keywords. Much different than Google's system. Perhaps someday someone will design a better keyword search for these sites, but get ready for some very unrelated results for now. What I do is try to think what the uploader might put in for keywords. It's a little different than what I do if I was on Google. It's a bit of psychology to think of what one would think. So you end up trying as many keywords possibilities as you can think of, and naming the clip. This is why I have a folder that's titled Footsteps for each movie. If I organize and title the Foley clip by footstep first, I get every kind of shoe there is. I get the pace, I get the surface the footstep is on. So if I name a clip Combat Walk, I may have to sift through combat weapons, guns, and etc., and not find that sergeant walking through an army barrack. Now, hopefully you get the idea about the title you give a clip. It can save you a lot of time looking through folders for a specific audio file if it is titled correctly. The other thing to think about when using these websites is that you can get some very amateur recordings. An example could be looking for footsteps on a wooden floor. You go to one of these sites and you search for footsteps on a wooden floor, and the guy that uploaded the file is, yeah, it's a footstep on a wooden floor, but did he really have to leave the TV on? Is that a train in the background? I can't use that. It's difficult to find tracks that are clean, free of background noises. The whole idea is to isolate the sound. It helps to have a soundproof room when you're recording. I'll get into soundproofing your recording area in another lecture. Now, of the sounds that I get from the internet are usually the ones that are not prominent. They are sounds that usually have a lower volume in the mix, and I can get by with them. The other thing is the different file types and the size of the clip. Usually when I see a file that's an MP3, I figure it's going to sound thin or metallic. Although I have used MP3s before, provided the sound is good, but WAV files and AFFs drop into most editing programs with no problem. Bandwidth and speed of your internet connection can really affect your workflow. You might find a clip on the internet, but the thing is a huge file. And then you're waiting on a download for a 1-second clip. Yeah, you can continue to move ahead while the thing is downloading, but it can throw off your momentum to have to go back and drop this downloaded clip in later. I like to keep moving expediently. I have hundreds of tracks and many timelines to keep track of, and sometimes it is hard to go back. You can get lost real fast. The last thing I'd like to talk about is viruses. I don't surf the net with my editing machine. All of these new operating systems are making it more and more difficult to remove all of their auto apps that instantly connect you with the web. The most funny ones is Adobe, and I love Adobe, but they just seem to continue to try to connect you with the internet, sign in, go to this app, use this, do that. I get what they're trying to do, but I just do not like getting on the internet for any costs. I once got a crypto-wall virus because I started getting lazy and allowed my editing machine to go on the internet a little too often. I'm not sure if you've heard of this virus, but it's really bad. It goes into your drives and destroys all your files. Yeah, edit files. Yeah, Macs get them too. Not as often, but they can get them. Sure, you can get a really expensive virus software installed, but they're really not foolproof. They can slow your machine down, and you don't want to have a slow machine. I find it better just to stay off the web altogether on my editing machine. The sites I use will be in the PDF to follow. So as you can see, there is a lot to understand in the world of Foley. Congratulations, you've covered a lot of information so far. But as you can see, there is a lot more amazing secrets to discover in the world of sound design. In the Master Course, we will continue to explore the world of sound that you are creating. We will go over how to train your ear, what kind of recording room I use, show you the secrets of momentum, how to clean up dialogue, and much, much more. Now once you've advanced to the full understanding of the world of sound design you are creating, Foley becomes secondary to the process. It becomes instinctive. In the masterclass, we will get our hands dirty on how all this is done in an actual timeline. I will show you step by step everything I do to get a distributor's approval. Although this is the Lite class, the Master Course puts it all together. Stay tuned for the next lecture and I will give you the discount code for the Master Course. Thank you for taking this course and I look forward to working with you in the next class.